You're scrolling, drifting through the endless static of the algorithm, waiting for the signal to cut through the noise. Consider, if you will, that you just found the frequency. You've just stepped off the timeline of the everyday, into the space where the forgotten history and the hidden truths finally touch down. There's the story you know, and then there's the airspace we're about to enter. Check your coordinates, because you're heading towards the landing point. Welcome back, viewers. Today's story: Jump, Baby, Jump. The year was 1988, and the winter air in Calgary was biting. Among the world-class athletes, the giants of the slopes and the masters of the ice, stood a young man who looked more like an academic than an Olympian. He was a plasterer by trade, a man who lived on oatmeal and slept in a mental hospital in Finland because it was the cheapest bed he could find. He didn't have high-tech suits. He wore 6 socks just to make his borrowed boots fit. And then there were the glasses. Thick pink-rimmed spectacles that fogged up so badly under the goggles that he was essentially flying blind. When he took to the 70-meter jump, the world held their breath. Not for a world record, but out of the collective prayers that he would survive. He came in dead last. He jumped 71 meters while the leaders were clearing 120. The official sporting world was frankly embarrassed. They called him a clown. They quickly moved to change the rules, a move now known as the rule, to ensure that amateurs like him could never mock the hallowed grounds of the Olympic Games. But a funny thing happened on the way to the bottom of the hill. While the gold medalists were being analyzed by the pundits, the world was falling in love with a loser. When he landed, he didn't hang his head. He flapped his arms like a bird in a joyful, goofy dance. He hadn't conquered the record books, but he hadn't conquered the record books, but he had conquered the singular, terrifying mountain in front of him. The president of the organizing committee, Frank King, stood before the closing ceremonies and told the world, "At these games, some competitors have won gold. Some have broken records. And some of you have soared like an eagle." At those words, 20,000 people began to chant his name. But here's the part the history books often skip. That clown wasn't just a lucky amateur. Long before he'd touched a pair of skis, he had been told by doctors he would likely never walk properly again after a devastating childhood illness. He had spent years in calipers, dreaming of motion while his legs were locked into iron. He wasn't a man who didn't know how to jump. He was a man who simply refused to stay down. He didn't go to Calvary to be a punchline. He went because for a boy who once couldn't walk, flying, even badly, was the ultimate victory. You know him as the Eagle. But he was born Michael Edwards. And whether you realize it or not, as long as this is the landing point. Thank you for watching today, The Landing Point. Our stories come out Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, so you can always catch our latest story. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Roadrunner Real Estate. They're a full-service real estate company that can help you with both your real estate, residential and commercial needs, both buying and selling and leasing for the commercial side. If you haven't done so already, please go out to our YouTube page and subscribe so you can get our latest stories that come out. If you want our latest updates, please go to our Facebook page and follow and like that. And then for those of you that enjoy just listening to stories when you're out on the drive, we do have our podcast too that you can hear the same stories. Thank you for listening to today's story, and we'll catch you next time.